Disclaimer: this story contains mature themes intended for adult viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of the ceiling fan, the kind of quiet where every sound feels louder than it should. I didn't hear him move, but I felt it, the mattress dip behind me, the sudden warmth of his presence crawling across my skin before his hand even touched me. His fingers started at the small of my back, tracing lazy circles that seemed innocent at first, until my breath caught and gave me away. My heart was pounding so loud I was sure he could hear it, and yet he said nothing. Just the silence, just the weight of him sitting so close, just the way his fingertips mapped out trails that made my spine curve without permission. I tried to keep still. Tried to pretend I didn't notice how the air between us was shifting, thickening, almost electric. But then I felt him lean in. Not enough to close the gap, not enough to press against me, but enough that his breath brushed the back of my neck, sending a shiver racing through me. I glanced over my shoulder, and that's when his eyes caught mine. Steady, unblinking, holding me in place. There was a spark there, teasing, daring me to react first. My lips parted but no words came. My whole body was already answering for me, arching back into that touch I couldn't resist. The playful stroke of his hand became slower, more deliberate, like he knew exactly what he was doing. And maybe he did. My pulse was out of control now, my thoughts scattered, the room shrinking until it was just him, me, and that unbearable tension building in the space of a single breath. I wanted to ask him what he thought he was doing. I wanted to tell him to stop before I completely lost myself in this moment. But instead, I found myself leaning back further, until I couldn't tell if I was moving into him, or if he was pulling me in without a word. And that's when, they say marriage is built on love, trust, and routine, but routines can turn into silence if you're not careful. For us, life had fallen into that quiet rhythm. We loved each other, yes, but the words we once whispered so easily were now replaced with unspoken glances and half-finished conversations. Bills, schedules, work, and exhaustion had taken center stage. Somewhere along the way, the fire dimmed, though neither of us dared to admit it out loud. But sometimes, it's in the quiet that something unexpected stirs. I'd always known he could read me better than anyone, even when I tried to hide behind smiles. He knew when I was tired before I'd said a word. He knew when my laugh was forced. He knew when I wanted more than I could bring myself to ask for. And tonight, when his touch traced down my back like he was rewriting our story on my skin, I realized he also knew what I hadn't been saying for months. I wanted him. Not just as my husband. Not just as my partner. I wanted to feel that spark again, that edge between comfort and danger, where my heartbeat raced and his eyes made me forget the rest of the world. But desire doesn't erase the cracks. The unspoken truths lingered between us. Nights when I wondered if he still thought of me the way he used to. Mornings when he left for work without a goodbye kiss, as if routine had swallowed passion whole. He carried his own weight too, stress that he never fully shared, burdens I could see in the lines across his forehead, the weariness in his shoulders. We both kept things back, not because we didn't care, but because we were afraid. Afraid of what honesty might reveal. And yet, here we were, closer than we had been in months, the silence around us suddenly alive. Every brush of his fingers was a question, every pause a dare, every shift in the mattress a reminder that something was breaking open. I turned my head slightly, catching him in my peripheral vision, and the way he looked at me made my chest tighten. It wasn't just want, it was need. A raw, unspoken truth that matched my own. But neither of us spoke. That was the game now. Words would ruin it. Words would make it too real, too fast. Instead, it was the small things, the way his breath slowed when I leaned back, the way my hand twitched against the blanket, wanting to reach for him but holding back. Suspense became our language. Desire filled the silence we used to fear. And in that fragile space, I felt something shift. Maybe the cracks weren't just weaknesses. Maybe they were openings, places where light could slip back in. What happened next, neither of us were ready to say. It's strange how desire sharpens everything, the sound of a breath, the shift of a mattress, the silence heavy enough to crush words before they're spoken. Tonight, that silence was louder than ever. I could feel him watching me, the weight of his gaze burning hotter than his touch. But what unsettled me most wasn't his closeness, it was the storm I felt building inside him. There was tension in the way his hand lingered too long, in the way his jaw tightened when I leaned away for just a second. A flicker of jealousy, sharp and undeniable, as though the thought of me belonging anywhere else, even in memory, was unbearable to him. And maybe that was what I craved. The proof that under his calm exterior, he still wanted me so fiercely it almost hurt. Do you ever think about it? I asked softly, not turning to look at him. What it would feel like if we lost this? The question hung in the air like a spark before fire. His fingers stilled on my back. For a moment, I thought he wouldn't answer. But then he leaned closer, his voice low, edged with something darker. I don't think about losing you, he whispered. I think about how easily someone else could notice what's mine, and how I'd never let that happen. His words sent a shiver through me, the kind that was part fear, part thrill. Possessive, raw, unfiltered. It wasn't the kind of love we showed in public, it was the kind that smoldered in private, dangerous in its intensity. I turned then, meeting his eyes fully. And what I saw there was more than love. It was longing, yes, but also hunger, frustration at the walls we'd built between us, temptation pressing against restraint. The space between us shrank until there was no escaping it. Every heartbeat felt stolen, every glance charged with what we hadn't said. I wanted to close the distance, to fall into what was pulling us together. But the suspense of holding back made the moment ache even more. It felt forbidden, even though he was mine. Maybe because after all this time, wanting him this badly felt almost like wanting something I shouldn't. And just when I thought I couldn't take the tension any longer. The night had narrowed down to just us, and the walls seemed to close in with it. Every shadow in the room stretched long, every breath between us heavy and uneven. It wasn't just a moment anymore, it felt like we were teetering on the edge of something neither of us could take back. I shifted slightly, meaning to put distance between us, but he moved at the same time. The result? My back pressed against his chest, the warmth of him searing through the thin fabric of my shirt. I froze, breath caught, heart thundering so loud I was sure it echoed in the silence. He didn't pull away. He stayed there, his hand brushing along my side, not gripping, not forcing, just hovering close enough to drive me crazy. The kind of touch that wasn't quite a touch, but still made me lean into it. We shouldn't, I whispered, though I wasn't even sure why I said it. He was my husband. Yet the way the air crackled between us made it feel like something secret, something stolen. Then tell me to stop, he murmured, his voice low, daring. I couldn't. Not when his lips were so close to the curve of my neck, not when the heat of his breath melted every thought I had into pure want. My body betrayed me, arching back into him, surrendering before my words could catch up. For a moment, the world outside didn't exist, just the rhythm of his breath against my skin, just the thrum of desire pulsing between us. My fingers clutched at the blanket, nails grazing the fabric, desperate for something to hold onto as the tension threatened to unravel me. He shifted again, just slightly, but it was enough to make me realize how close we were to breaking the fragile line we'd been dancing around all night. His hand pressed firmly against the curve of my waist now, no hesitation, no distance. The energy between us was fire, too close, too strong, impossible to resist. I turned my head, eyes catching his just inches away. The look there wasn't soft anymore. It was raw, hungry, dangerous in its promise. And just when I thought the moment would finally tip over into no return, the tension had reached its breaking point. Every second stretched like a thread pulled too tight, ready to snap. His chest pressed against my back, his hands steady on my waist now, no more hesitation, no more teasing distance. The way he held me, the way his breath tangled with mine, it was too much, too real, and yet I couldn't pull away. I turned my head, ready for the kiss I knew was coming. The kiss that would undo both of us. His eyes locked onto mine, dark and blazing, and in that instant I wanted nothing else but to fall into him. But then, he stopped. Not because he didn't want it. I could feel the war raging inside him, the hunger in his grip. But something else cut through the fire. A truth. A shadow I hadn't seen until now. "I can't keep pretending," he whispered, his voice breaking the silence like glass shattering. My chest tightened. "Pretending what?" "That you're the only one I think about." The words landed heavy, sharp, stealing the air from my lungs. For a moment I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Heat flooded me, anger, betrayal, disbelief, all clashing with the undeniable desire that still burned between us. I twisted in his arms, facing him fully now. "What do you mean?" My voice shook, part fury, part fear of the answer. He held my gaze, no escape in his eyes. "There's someone else. Not like this, not physical, but in my mind, in the moments when I shouldn't. I don't want it, I fight it, but it's there." His grip on me tightened, as though afraid I'd slip away forever after the confession. "And it's tearing me apart." The room spun. The intimacy we just shared, the fire that had nearly consumed us, it now felt dangerous, poisoned with a truth I hadn't asked for but couldn't ignore. And yet, even in that raw, broken moment, my body betrayed me again. Because the confession, as devastating as it was, made his closeness feel even more forbidden, even more charged. It wasn't just desire anymore. It was temptation edged with betrayal. "You should have told me sooner," I whispered, though my fingers still clutched at his shirt, holding him in place. His forehead pressed against mine, his voice low, pleading. "I don't want her. I want you. Only you. But I can't stop my thoughts, and it kills me." The pain in his words twisted with the heat in the air, creating a storm that neither of us could step out of. This wasn't just passion anymore. It was love, anger, jealousy, and longing colliding at once. And as his lips hovered over mine, the truth burning between us like a live wire, I realized, whatever happened next would change everything. The air between us was sharp now, too sharp to breathe without cutting myself on the edges of his confession. My hands still clutched his shirt, but I wasn't sure if I wanted to pull him closer or push him away. My heart hammered in my chest, every beat screaming a different command. "You don't get to drop something like that," I snapped, my voice breaking even as I tried to keep it steady. "You don't get to hold me like this while admitting you've been somewhere else in your mind." He flinched, but his grip on my waist only tightened. "I told you because I couldn't lie anymore. Because even with those thoughts, even with the cracks between us, I want you more than I've ever wanted anyone. That hasn't changed." Tears stung my eyes, frustration boiling over. "Then why wasn't I enough? Why did you let someone else live in your head when I've been here, waiting, aching for you?" His face crumbled at my words, raw emotion flashing across his features. "Because I was afraid," he admitted. "Afraid that we'd fallen too far into routine, that you didn't look at me the way you used to. That maybe you didn't want me the same anymore. And when fear grows, it looks for escape, even in the wrong places." The anger in me twisted into something heavier, sorrow. I wanted to scream, to push him away, but instead, my body betrayed me again. Because even in my fury, I couldn't ignore how his eyes begged for forgiveness, how his voice cracked under the weight of truth. "You broke something tonight," I whispered. "But maybe you also saved it. Because at least now I know. At least now it's real." The silence stretched, thick with unshed tears and words we didn't know how to form. Then, without thinking, I leaned into him, not because everything was fixed, but because I needed to feel something beyond the pain. His arms wrapped around me, desperate, almost crushing, like he feared I'd disappear if he let go. The kiss came like a storm, angry, hungry, desperate. Not the soft reunion of forgiveness, but the raw collision of two people clinging to what they still had, even if it was cracked. My tears mixed with his breath, my hands gripping his shoulders like I was holding on to the only truth that mattered. When we finally broke apart, gasping, trembling, the room felt different. The betrayal still hung in the air, the wound still fresh, but beneath it, something fierce burned brighter. "We'll never be the same," I told him. "No," he agreed, his forehead pressed against mine. "But maybe we can be stronger." And in that fragile, fiery moment, I realized, our story wasn't ending. It was only changing. The storm had passed, though its echoes still lingered in the room. My eyes were swollen from tears, my heart exhausted from the weight of every word we had thrown between us. And yet, as I sat there with his arms still wrapped tightly around me, I realized something undeniable: even broken, we still fit. He pulled back just enough to look at me, his thumb brushing gently across my cheek. The fire from earlier, the jealousy, the anger, the guilt, was gone now. What I saw in his eyes was something simpler, deeper: love, stripped of pretense. "I don't want to lose you," he whispered. His voice cracked on the last word, raw and unguarded. "You almost did," I admitted softly, my voice trembling. But then I placed my hand over his heart, feeling its frantic rhythm. "And maybe that's what makes me realize how much I still need you. How much I still choose you." The silence that followed wasn't heavy this time. It was healing, like the first quiet after a storm. He leaned in, slower now, no urgency, no desperation. Just tenderness. When his lips met mine, it wasn't fire, it was warmth. The kind that seeps into your bones, that stays even when the world outside turns cold. The kiss deepened, not in hunger but in devotion, each breath exchanged carrying unspoken promises. His hand slipped into mine, fingers interlacing, grounding us both in the moment. For the first time in a long time, I felt safe. Not because everything was perfect, but because we were finally willing to face the imperfections together. When we pulled apart, he rested his forehead against mine, smiling through the remnants of tears. "We'll make this work. Not because it's easy, but because it's us." I smiled back, my chest lightening. "Then let's stop hiding from each other. No more silences. No more pretending. Just us, messy, real, and still choosing each other every day." He kissed my hand, tender and slow, sealing the promise with something stronger than words. And in that dimly lit room, where shadows and light mingled on the walls, I realized that love wasn't about avoiding the cracks. It was about holding each other tighter through them. The night ended not with fire or fury, but with quiet closeness. His arms wrapped around me as we lay back on the bed, our breaths finally in sync, the chaos settling into peace. We had been tested. We had nearly broken. But in the end, we chose love, and that choice made all the difference.